As we all know, when the United States went searching for a manufacturing base to substitute China, it set its sights on India, a nation with enormous population potential. In 2021, the Modi administration rolled out the Production-Linked Incentive Program with great fanfare, declaring its ambition to create a world factory 2.0 aimed directly at replacing China's role. Soon after, India announced it would allocate $23 billion to launch what it called a nuclear-level industrial initiative, hoping that massive subsidies would pull global supply chains away from China. Yet, unexpectedly, in March 2025, the Indian government officially admitted that the plan, after 4 years of effort, had failed. Even more concerning, India's manufacturing share of GDP didn't rise at all. Instead, it fell from 15.4% to 14.3%. Out of the planned $23 billion in incentives, only about 8% was actually delivered. A country once praised by Western media as the next China is now experiencing the harsh reality of falling from lofty expectations. So why did India want to replace China in the first place? And why did its manufacturing push collapse? If you enjoy our content, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss our latest videos. Now, let's dive into today's topic. Back in 2014, shortly after Modi took office, he set a goal to dramatically expand India's manufacturing sector. He planned to raise manufacturing's share of GDP to over 25% and generate 100 million jobs. The logic seemed simple. China, once a backward manufacturing nation, rose to become the world's industrial hub. If China succeeded, India believed it could follow the same path. During Trump's first presidency, the United States strongly supported India's manufacturing ambitions and promoted the slogan, "Replace Made in China with Made in India." Because of geopolitical dynamics, American companies like Apple and Tesla began exploring India more aggressively and started laying foundations in the market. By 2021, the Modi government formally introduced the much-anticipated PLI, the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme, promising to create a second home for the world's factory and positioning India as the next China. Against this backdrop, roughly 750 companies, including Apple and Foxconn, signed cooperation deals. Indian media enthusiastically reported that global supply chains were shifting toward the Ganges region. Apple even partnered with local manufacturers to open new facilities and search for fresh growth. The PLI plan was designed to attract domestic and foreign companies to produce in India. Covering 14 key sectors, from aerospace and autos to electronics, pharmaceuticals, and textiles, the initiative aimed to boost production through cash incentives and push India into the center of global manufacturing. According to India's blueprint, the PLI would cost about $23 billion and raise manufacturing's share of GDP from 13% to 25%. Companies that met production goals would receive direct monetary rewards. However, reality quickly struck. By October 2024, companies had only achieved 37% of their production targets, and the government had paid out just $1.73 billion of the promised $23 billion, less than 8%. Ironically, 94% of all subsidies went to pharmaceuticals and mobile phone manufacturing, the sectors most dependent on Chinese raw materials and technology. Indian scholar Dar commented, "If a plan of this scale fails, what hope is left?" So what exactly went wrong? In March 2025, Modi's national gamble officially collapsed. India's manufacturing share in GDP dropped from 15.4% to 14.3%, and the workforce shrank by more than 15 million people. Even more shocking, India's global export performance fell behind that of Singapore. Within 4 years, more than 2,000 contracted firms effectively staged a mass exit from India. Apple's supplier Wistron waited 18 months for subsidies that never arrived and eventually dismantled $400 million worth of equipment. A factory owned by India's richest businessman Ambani nearly collapsed because of delayed subsidy payments. Foxconn had to halt production due to a lack of technicians to install imported machinery. Sun Pharmaceutical, a firm claiming it could replace Chinese drug makers, still relies on China for about 80% of its materials. In industrial areas like steel, textiles, and solar panels, the situation worsened. 8 of 12 PLI-approved firms missed targets, with some hitting only 50% of their production goals in fiscal 2027. Adani Group, despite its size, hadn't even ordered equipment. Meanwhile, basic sectors such as steel and textiles were ignored. 14 of 58 steel projects were canceled due to slow progress, and 50,000 small and mid-sized textile factories shut down. All this unfolded during India's economic slowdown and rapid foreign capital retreat. Since October 2024, overseas investors have been dumping Indian assets and shifting funds back to China. One food company exceeded its production targets, but still received no subsidies due to failing to meet investment thresholds. Then came another blow. Data from India's Ministry of Commerce in March 2025 confirmed that China once again became India's largest trading partner, with total trade reaching $118.4 billion. A sharp reminder that India's attempt to de-China its economy had failed. Meanwhile, the subcontinent faced historic capital flight. At the Bombay Stock Exchange, nearly $420 million of foreign capital was fleeing every minute. This shock shattered Modi's New India vision and, well, buried the industrial ambitions of 1.3 billion citizens under India's institutional issues. Some Indian experts even argued publicly that India's manufacturing failure wasn't India's fault, but China's cleverness. But is China really to blame? A major issue was India's strict visa blockade on Chinese technicians, part of its attempt to cut ties with China. From 2020 to 2024, Indian visas for Chinese nationals dropped 99%, from 200,000 to just 2,000. This left thousands of Chinese-made machines uninstalled, caused factory paralysis, and created losses exceeding $15 billion. At the same time, India kept heavily importing Chinese parts. Screws in Indian-made smartphones came from China's EWO. Solar panels relied on Chinese silicon wafers. Even 60% of pharmaceutical raw materials had to be sourced from China. This contradictory logic, wanting Chinese components but rejecting Chinese expertise, made the PLI program an international joke. Smartphones marketed as 100% made in India still use chips that were 70% supplied by SMIC. In a new Tata electric car factory, about 80% of assembly line components carried Chinese labels. To block Chinese engineers, India reduced their visa approvals by 98%, leading to Chinese machinery worth 12 billion yuan turning into idle scrap. By October 2024, India had released only $1.73 billion of its massive subsidy fund, and most of it went to sectors still dependent on China. The mobile phone industry relies on China for 80% of components, and Chinese brands still hold 60% of India's market. Pharmaceuticals depend on China for 70% of raw materials, and the PLI plan ended up ballooning India's trade deficit with China past $120 billion. Indian analysts noted that China outcompetes India in nearly every industrial field, making it difficult for Indian products to enter global markets. This period also saw Foxconn, BYD, and Huawei's Honor abandon their Indian operations, further weakening India's high-end manufacturing hopes. But their departure also had another cause: India's bureaucratic maze. The approval process is notoriously slow. Companies must submit 7 different types of documents, and subsidy approval can take up to 18 months. Over 60% of applicants simply gave up. Even after approval, firms still faced crushing fines and, well, regulatory chaos. Tesla needed to visit 48 government departments just to get forms stamped for factory construction. Walmart was fined $2.3 million for disturbing peacock habitats. SoftBank's $500 million subsidy request was stalled for 14 months by the Environmental Bureau. Apple waited 18 months for subsidy clearance, only to get hit with a $320 million tax audit. Xiaomi had $580 million in assets frozen. Vivo was raided. Oppo had production lines shut down. Retail suffered too. Amazon shut down 65% of its India operations. Walmart was fined $150 million for alleged e-commerce violations. In the auto sector, Volkswagen was asked to pay $1.4 billion in duties, and Kia faced $175 million in tax claims. This unpredictable environment pushed many companies to withdraw from India. Recently, the government imposed a $600 million fine on Samsung Electronics for supposed tariff fraud, nearly wiping out half a year of profits. Samsung's India CEO remarked, "We're not running a factory anymore. We're learning how to survive India's bureaucracy. If policy confusion is a man-made disaster, then, well, India's underlying conditions sealed the PLI plan's fate." In the past 5 years, India has extracted over $20 billion from foreign firms through tariff disputes and currency controls. That's nearly 40% of India's annual defense budget. Labor issues also hold India back. About 65% of workers have only primary education. Just 15% have vocational training, and India is short more than 1 million skilled technicians. Logistics add another burden. Transport costs equal 14% of GDP. Goods require 5 transfers per 100 kilometers, and damage rates can reach 30%. Industrial zones even face up to 8 hours of daily power outages. Because of these challenges, many firms simply abandoned India. Economists estimate $16 billion in foreign capital will flow out of the Indian stock market in 2024, while investment into China will rise 42% in the same period. As one executive put it, building a factory here feels like racing in a swamp. In short, despite India's determination to replace China, the obstacles it faces make such ambitions unrealistic. To stay updated on our future videos and analyses, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. More fascinating content is on the way.